Hi, I'm Dan, this is that Midlife Crisis Motorcyclist, and this is the KTM 990 Duke and my first chance to ride a KTM of any sort, which is pretty exciting anyway, but the more so for the fact that for a moment back there, it looked like this might never happen at all, for the brand's financial wobbles, meaning that it very nearly disappeared entirely. Thankfully, that didn't happen and a solution has been found, and we can get back to talking about the bikes themselves, which is a lot more interesting than poring over the financial news, isn't it? Now, as a brand, KTM has a very clear sense of identity, that's for sure. You might love it, you might hate it, but this is a brand that knows what it's about. And for somebody who's never ridden one before, that seemingly is big stoppies, burnouts, middle finger in the air attitude, all that kind of thing. Will that come across in the way the bike rides? Well, I guess we'll find out very soon, won't we? But first of all, let's just have a look at where this 990 fits in the KTM range, which again, as somebody new to it, looks somewhat confusing for the sheer number of bikes that are in it, many of which seem to have similar sounding names, similar sounding jobs, and there's a real sense that there's perhaps a little bit too much duplication. Oh, we weren't going to talk about that, were we? Anyway, back to the Duke lineup itself. This goes from 125s, which you can ride on L plates and a CBT, all the way up to 190 horsepower hypernakeds like the 1390 Duke R. So a pretty big range of bikes therein. At £10,999, this one's quite a long way up that range. It's got 123 horsepower and 103 newton meters from its 947cc parallel twin, so pretty serious numbers. And at that kind of price and performance level, it's up against bikes like the Triumph Street Triple 765, Yamaha MT-09, maybe the Ducati Monster, even perhaps the Honda CB1000 Hornet, all of which are very, very good bikes and priced there or thereabouts to what KTM will charge you for this 990. In terms of what it brings to the party, well, pretty much all the electronics and gizmos you could dream of, or perhaps pay for, given that while the standard bike comes with traction control, wheelie control, cornering ABS, all that kind of thing, to unlock the really juicy stuff, you actually have to pay extra for the kind of adjustable side slip control, adjustable wheelie control, the race performance modes, track modes, all that kind of stuff. Even the quick shifter and cruise control, which are fitted to the bike as standard, are effectively hidden behind a paywall, which is somewhat cheeky, isn't it? At least the fully adjustable WP Apex suspension is manually adjustable, so they can't make you pay extra for that. But how will it compare with that MT-09? Is it good enough to beat a monster? By the end of this video, will I be doing stoppies and burnouts with my middle finger in the air? Well, I guess we'll find out, won't we? Right, so am I ready to race, as KTM would have it? Well, let's find out. Can't promise there'll be any stoppies or burnouts at any point in this video, but we'll see how we go. But what are the first impressions of this 990 Duke? Well, first thing that comes to mind is how small it feels, in fact. Which is quite surprising because it's effectively a litre bike, really, isn't it, in terms of engine capacity and performance and all the rest. But underneath me, and I'm what, just shy of 6 foot, it feels more like that Aprilia 45720 that I rode before, maybe even the Honda CB500 Hornet in terms of its physical size, and that makes sense because it's a light bike as well, 179 kilos before fuel, so it's probably sub 200 kilos even when fully fueled. So yeah, it's a light bike and a small and chuckable one. And also a pretty powerful one as well, so it is, as I would have hoped from a KTM, pretty feisty in the way it picks up. Now, previously ridden along this strange stretch of road, I rode the Yamaha XSR 900, so quite a similar bike. It's probably closer to the MT-09 really, but a similarly leery little bike, so it's an interesting comparison to ride this one on the same road. And first impressions are that it's super punchy. The engine is, as you can hear, it's quite loud, as you'd hope, and it's really torquey, pulls really hard, and by the sound and the kind of character of it, if you told me it was a V-twin rather than a parallel twin, I'd probably believe you, because it's got a definite rawness about it that you don't get from most parallel twins. But then if you look at it up against others in the class, it's up against V-twin in the Ducati, it's triples in the Triumph and the Yamaha, so it needs to be good to stand out, and certainly with that combination of firepower and the lack of weight, it's certainly got that. And this is in the standard street mode. Now I've run it in the sport mode as well, but frankly it just feels, well, it feels kind of what you'd expect a KTM to feel like, or at least what I assumed a KTM would feel like, which is to say super aggressive and very pointy, very abrupt on the throttle. But to be honest, I didn't like it as much in that mode, because unless you were very, very careful on the throttle, it just felt like the front end was going to pick up all the time, which I guess to some people is exactly the point. But you know, if you're trying to feed the power on through a corner and the front end's going light, certainly for somebody of my experience level, that's not a pleasant experience. So I think I prefer the slightly more controllable feel of the street mode, and it's certainly not lacking in acceleration or response, but I guess the other modes are there if you want them. Sounds good as well. It's got a slightly naughty growl to it, a little bark, and then pops and crackles on the overrun and stuff like that. So there's the kind of attitude you'd want out of a KTM in that sense. Feels really exciting, which is what you want, isn't it? You know, that stereotype of KTMs being leery and up for it and all that sort of thing certainly seems to ring true on this. And for a bike, for taking out along the lanes on a summer's evening like this, feels absolutely in its element. Just so small and chuckable and punchy, which is exciting, as is meeting a tractor coming the other way. Maybe I should have given him the finger saying I'm riding a KTM and all, but maybe not. Anyway, now we've got around that, cut loose a little bit. My God, it really picks up speed. It's really, really aggressive on the throttle, but that's what you'd expect, isn't it? And in terms of the handling, the suspension's definitely got a level of sophistication about it, which is certainly equivalent to the KYB stuff you get on the Yamahas, I would say. It is quite stiff. When I first got on the bike, it was harsh enough that bigger bumps would thump through with enough ferocity to get me going, oof. But I've backed off the compression on the forks. It's got 5 steps of compression adjustment on a handy dial on top of the fork, so I backed that off to fully soft, back the rear off to soft as well. I only weigh about 75 kilos, so for somebody of my body weight that probably feels about right. Got another rider here coming up on my 6, so we'll let him through. Okay, no, he doesn't want to come through. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, so the suspension is stiff. It's got quite a lot of travel actually, so I think it's 140 at the front and 150 at the back, which for a road bike is quite a lot actually, but it's very tightly damped, very tightly controlled, so it does feel like it's beating you up a fair bit on the road, but again, that kind of fits with the KTM image. And then in terms of the interface with the bike, these chunky controls and all this kind of stuff look really, really good. There's a quality about this bike. I don't know how it compares with the Chinese built KTMs in the range, but it's certainly got a quality vibe about it, which I appreciate. This being a press bike, it's got all the electronics enabled, which I think they call a demo mode, which is, as I understand it, is available there for the first few miles you have with the bike to kind of tease you with what the bike can do, and then you have to obviously pay to unlock that if that's what you want to do, which is an interesting way of doing it, somewhat controversial, but at least once you paid for it, it's done. It's not a subscription model, so you don't have to keep paying, as some car manufacturers will make you do with some features. So once you've bought it, you've bought it, and that's that. So but that's an interesting comparison with the Hornet that you could have for similar money. The Hornet, of course, is a proper litre bike. It's got a 5-blade engine, it's got 140 odd horsepower. It's a much more serious machine, but on the flip side, it doesn't have the electronics that you get on the KTM, so it's a bigger, more substantial bike. It's actually simpler, but I guess it's what your priorities are. Are you after outright power, or are you after electronics and gizmos? Pays your money, takes your choice, but it's certainly been an interesting comparison with the Hornet, which is a bike I've ridden, and the Triumph and the MT-09, which I haven't. But on this brief taste, I'd say the 990 Duke delivers on the excitement that I was hoping for from riding a KTM, and definitely some of the lariness. So there we go, my first go on a KTM, and did it live up to the hype? Well, it was certainly, the expectation was for a kind of leery, aggressive, up for it kind of riding style, and I think the 990 Duke certainly delivers on that. That combination of the punchy engine, the lack of weight, the super sharp handling, the stiff suspension, all that kind of stuff, it certainly gets across that aggressive image that came to mind when I thought of KTM. So yeah, on that score, it certainly delivers the goods. It feels like a very good introduction to the brand as well. Now I realise, of course, KTM's got a much broader history in off-road and enduro, all that kind of thing, and for some people that's what the brand stands for. But to have a go on a street bike as my first taste feels like quite an appropriate way to go, and it gave me a good sense of the way the brand does things with its engineering, its design and things like that. In terms of the looks, it's not a beautiful bike by any stretch. It's certainly aggressive, but then, you know, lots of the bikes in this class are pretty challenging in their looks as well. You wouldn't call the Yamaha MT-09 any sort of oil painting, would you? And I think for all its kind of punchiness, it's unmistakably KTM. It couldn't be anything else, could it? Even in this fairly restrained grey with little orange flash that we've got here. So yeah, as I said at the start, KTM is a brand that knows its identity, it knows what it stands for, and I think this 990 Duke certainly represents that. There are some niggles. I think the policy of hiding some of the electronics behind a kind of, as I said at the start, a paywall is a little bit cheeky, a bit annoying when you pick the bike up and see that it's got a quick shifter fitted, but you know you have to pay extra to use it. That's a little bit frustrating. I guess it's the way that KTM does things. It's a more common policy that we're seeing rolling out across the automotive industry as well, so I guess it might be one of those things. But yeah, I find that a little bit annoying that actually an 11 grand bike is really a 12 grand bike if you want to get all the bits that you really want on it. Be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Also interested to hear whether you think this is the best sort of sporty naked of its type in this kind of 12 grand, 120-ish horsepower bracket. Would you go for this? Would you prefer the Yamaha MT-09, the slightly more retro vibe of the XSR 900 instead? Or would it be the Triumph, or perhaps the Ducati Monster? Plenty of options out there, including noisy bikes like whatever those ones are going past on the road behind me. So yeah, would it be those, or would it be the Honda CB1000 Hornet perhaps? The extra power, would that swing it for you? I'd love to hear what you think. Let's have a chat in the comments below. For now though, if you like the video, please hit like. If you're not subscribed already, please do so. And for now, I'll say goodbye, thanks for watching, and ride safe.